and nice to have you with us today. So Todd has started the recording. So Stuart, you are first on our agenda, and it's item 10.4, is it not, on our agenda, I believe?
All right.
Tender award for Scandia?
Yes. All right, I'm good to talk?
You betcha. Go ahead.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. This has been quite the process for getting this engine ready for Scandia. It was my second kick at it. I sent a tender out early October, and it closed in November, and I had one tender come back, and that one tender was about $60,000 over the budget that we had. So I was instructed, and rightfully so, to go back and see if I couldn't make the tender a little bit better, and then re-tender it out, which I did, and had everything done here by mid-December. The good news is 4 tenders came back this second time with roughly about a $16,000 variance between first and fourth place. And so I thought it was a very, very competitive bid, with unfortunately 3 of them being just slightly over budget and 1 under budget. With my scoring, I used 5 different criteria there, as you can see in my request for decision. And Acre Supply finished first in all of the categories. I worked very closely with Scandia Fire Chief, and I tried to engage both fire chiefs from Division 4, because that's where that fire truck was going. But unfortunately, the one fire chief was probably a little bit busy, so it was mostly just Scandia that was involved with this process. We did work very closely with the fire chiefs, because we didn't have a standard for engines when I started this whole process. So before I re-tendered out, I went to all the fire chiefs and said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Are there any tweaks that I need to do with it? And we got a consensus from all the fire chiefs that the tender that I sent out was a good one. And there was a little bit of concern about, can we add on, can we take off? And I said, well, if extra areas have different requests, they can certainly make those requests and we can try, but this is our basic minimum for an engine, to which I think most of our fire halls could use this quite well. I think the one big sticking point with some of them is the whole 4-wheel drive issue, and I have my own opinions on whether a 4-wheel drive is good for a fire engine in the county or not, and to me it's not. So anyways, after everything was all said and done, Acres Supply was the tender that I liked the best, and the fire chief Ryan from Scandia agreed as well at $422,387. With that, I put options in because I wanted to make sure we finished below budget, and then we could prioritize on what we were going to add into the engine to get to the budget line that we wanted to. So at the end of the day, there were a few other things, like a winch that we could use to put on the front of the truck, and a few other things. So there was about $14,000 in miscellaneous costs, which does put us over the budget a little. But in talking with Matt and with the fire chiefs, we feel that that overage that we have over the $430,000 can be covered through operations this year. The $7,210 can be done through operations. So the recommendation today is that we use Acre Supplies, or Acre Industries, out of Bylaw, Alberta, for $422,000, with extras that get us to $437,210, with the $7,210 coming out of operations for 2021.
Stuart, I'm from Manitoba, and Wawanese is in Manitoba.
Yes. What did I say? Alberta?
Alberta.
Apologize. I'm reading Manitoba, but I'm stuck in.
Manitoba is not that bad that every time you see MB, you have to say AB.
There you go. No, as a matter of fact, I came from Winnipeg. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I lived in Winnipeg almost 10 years before I moved to Brooks. So, yeah.
You're forgiven. All right, questions. I saw some hands. Wayne.
I noticed we got $1,200 to remove and reinstall iPads and docking stations in truck. Why do we have to do that? And also, also there's that $2,500 for the decals. That seemed like quite a bit.
Well, the deckling is basically for two engines, right? Because the Scandia engine is going to go over to Bow City, and then Bow Cities is going to come out of service. So that $1,200 for the iPads is we have to take the one iPad out of the old truck, out of Bow City's old truck. Well, technically what has to happen is the iPad from Scandia's truck has to go into the new one, and then the iPad from Bow City has to go over to the Scandia truck. So there's a little bit of transfer that has to happen there and work with that. So that's, you know, I put a budget in there so that we had the money to be able to do that.
Kelly?
Seems like a lot of money, but.
Kelly, you're not unmuted.
Thank you. So my question is around the deckling. Are these not Scandia Rainier? Are we putting decals on there that says Scandia? Are we not putting County of Newell decals on these trucks?
No, the trucks, all the fire halls throughout the nine fire halls we have in the County of Newell, everybody has their individual fire hall on the decals, but there is a county decal that goes on to every one. That cluster that I have at the bottom of my emails, that's the one of the decals that goes onto the truck to identify that it's a County of Newell truck, and it gives the individual fire departments their autonomy by still having their own Bow City or Scandia Fire Department decal on their truck.
So we've never had that conversation, I guess, about ownership. I mean, back when we had the ownership discussion before your time, Stuart, about deckling. Madam Reeve, I'm willing to make a motion to approve as recommended.
Clarence? Marie?
Well, I'm with Kelly a little bit on this deckling. And I think somewhere along the line, we've got to have the discussion that we don't want to pay $2,500 every time we move a vehicle. So let's start getting the discussion going that it's County of Newell on those trucks. Number underneath them so that everybody knows which one's which, though I don't think that's probably necessary for the firemen. But that when we move a truck from Scandia to Bow City, that we have to pay $2,500. And it might cause a minor uprising, but by gosh darn, let's give that $2,500 to the community. But it doesn't seem right.
Oh, sorry about that. I heard you, Clarence, and as a matter of fact, on the 20th, I have a meeting with the fire chiefs, so maybe I'll make that a priority to bring that up and start talking about that, and maybe moving to, for instance, that cluster that I have, and it kind of makes sense. Maybe we just put the division number down below on the truck. In Division 4, that doesn't work so well just because there's two different areas within Division 4. So I just know that the most of the guys, well, actually I think all the fire chiefs like the fact that they still have their autonomy, that they are Rolling Hills Fire or Tilly Fire, and not, County and Newell. So I'm trying to get the best of both worlds. We still have the county logo on there with the cluster, but still trying to give them their autonomy as they go. But I do hear that $2,500 is a lot of money to throw onto a truck every time we move it. So,
Anne-Marie and Kelly?
I agree with Clarence and Kelly. It doesn't have to. Nobody's going to steal that truck. They know that it's a Scandia truck. It's not going to disappear. My question was about the insurance. So we're going to buy from a company in Manitoba, but you're going to Lethbridge for warranty work. Is that correct?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the warranty work, I'm not too sure it would go to Lethbridge or if he would come here. It's Stu Harrison, who is the same fellow that actually does our pump testing on all our engines every year. So that was part of the decision making as well. I know Stu quite well. I know his work, and I'm very happy with what he does for us and the county. So yes.
Kelly and Lane or Wayne?
I was just going to suggest to go to a truck numbering system as opposed to a divisional numbering system, because that more streamlined in your system, Stuart. And also, I don't think we want to get into divisional differences, and then it still means a label has to move. So just try to get away from taking on and putting off labels is my suggestion.
For sure, and if I can make a comment to that, to the councillor, that is why I developed that cluster that I did, because what it does is it brings everybody together, right? It shows the county of Newell big and strong with all the other departments on the outside of it. So I think I could make a good argument to the fire department guys that that's what we're going to move to be on the side of the trucks, and we're going to go by truck numbers as we go along, which makes things easier. And then as we move an asset from one spot to another, it's very easy for finance to track that as it moves over to a different area, for sure.
Wayne and Tracy?
Another thing is about putting a division on there. We're changing the divisions. So like Division 4, I don't think this will be Division 4 anymore in, 8 months or so?
Great. Very good point.
It's not likely to all occur at once anyhow. I mean, I don't think it can be implemented as we go, as trucks change. But I think the discussion with our local fire people is important, though, because they are proud of what they do. And there's always been a concern that Big Brother would take them over. And so it's been a successful arrangement and a very successful takeover. And everyone's happy. And I echo what Claire said, it's about using our money wisely. And if some more money can go into their community fire protection, I'm sure they wouldn't be worried at all about a change. Tracy was next, I believe.
I guess I'm kind of on a total other side of what the comments have been made. To me, I don't think that anytime you move a vehicle, it's going to be the whole decking. So it's not going to cost the full $2,500 every time. It might be just the name change. So if you're going to just change to a unit number, I think it goes back to what you're saying, Stuart, with an enemy of our fire departments. Our fire departments are separate from all of our divisions. Like they have their own areas, and they're proud to be a part of that. That gives them a reason And so by changing a name, it's not like every time you're going to redecal the whole truck, right?
Yeah, that is a very currently the only decal that would change if we moved from one to the other than Scandia's has some different stuff on it, right? They got a big SC on the hood, but the way the decaling works is the fire rescue would stay, decal collage that I've created, that would stay. The only thing that would change is the two that are on the door that say Bow City or Scandia or Pisano or whoever it might be, Rosemary. So that would be the only decal that would change. And if we did a decal change like that, I wouldn't say we would engage people to actually install it for us, which would cost us more money. That would be something I would go out to the fire hall, peel the one decal off, and put the other one on. And I guess to the other point is to save some money and be prudent with our money. I decaled the 207 truck that is here in Brooks. So if you're ever driving around and you see Command 207 for Brooks, I decaled that truck from front to back myself. And it was a lot of fun for myself. It just takes away a little bit from my day-to-day operation doing something like that, but we don't purchase trucks every single day. Right now we're in it seems like a bit of a flurry purchasing them, but that's going to slow down here real soon. So just some points to make to that.
Hubie?
So Stu, the truck that's going to Bow City, what condition is it? How many miles on it? Or if you know that information right now.
You're catching me off guard. I'm not entirely sure how many kilometers is on it. It's not a ton because it hasn't been used a ton. I would say it's probably close into the 30,000 kilometer range, maybe somewhere in that range. So it's still got a good, I think it's 5 more years yet before that one needs to be replaced, or 4 more years. So.
Kelly?
I just wanted to ask, Stuart, you referred to a cluster. Where can I go and look at this cluster that you referred to?
I think the best, I could send it to you, Kelly, easy enough. But if you look to any of my emails down to my title line at the bottom, right below my title line, I have that cluster where it shows the County of Newell and then every single fire department going around it, right? Okay. So if we switch to something like that, maybe a good compromise is we could put that cluster on the door, which would be the main one for every fire department. And then right below that cluster, maybe we just put Pisano or Rosemary, and then it's just the lettering that needs to get changed if it goes to another department. Gives them their autonomy still and maybe makes them happy because their little logo is still in that cluster and their name is on the bottom. And then it actually makes all the trucks look the same. Would like that's what I've been promoting ever since I've started in the last 13 months here is more being a collective group, not individuals. So I am all for making that look all the same, but I still am for them having their autonomy too, per the department. So.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder, Madam Reeve, I did make a motion.
Yes, I have it. Any other comments? Nobody wants to ask any more questions, so I will call the question, and that is for going ahead with purchase. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Stuart, was that all you have today?
Yeah, I think that's all I have. You know, a new year, I'm starting to work on some projects here, so, and hopefully I might be able to bring some to you soon. But yeah, things are going well.
Good. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to where we left off earlier this morning. Our delegations are complete, so we will go back to the order of the agenda. And that brings Todd back to us on item 9.3, unless there's something else about resolutions, but I don't think so. Todd, 9.3.
Hi. 9.3, that is the funding of the executive assistant, right? Yes, it is. All right, so in the past, well, I think I actually laid it out pretty good in the RFD. It kind of, it made sense when I was writing it. I hope it made sense when you were reading it. I'm just trying to find it here in my notes. I don't know what I did with it. All right, so we're going to go off of memory, I guess. So the executive assistant, we had gotten a grant from the Alberta government to hire an executive assistant for the ASB Provincial Committee. That executive assistant just took care of the minutes, the correspondence, running, I think, some of the meeting type of administration, and then helped out with the resolutions when it came to, I wouldn't say manipulating them, but just making sure that everything was accurate within them and in a good enough format to go to conference. Alberta government gave us that grant. It was a 3-year grant, but was in one lump sum. And they gave that to the AAAF because the Ag Service Board Committee is not an entity that they can give money to, but so the AAAF administered that grant. Long story short, I guess the AAAF does hold money and gives it to or pays for ASB committee expenses. And to date, that was kind of about that $10,000 mark for committee meetings. I guess if they had to rent a room or bring in lunch, or if a municipality wasn't willing to pay for their councillor to go to that, then I believe there was mileage paid, and I might be speaking out of turn. But what we did, we collected those monies through the Provincial Ag Service Board Conference. So there was an extra little bit charged there for everybody that attended, and then that money went back towards that committee expense. What happened was the provincial government has not committed to reallocate that grant to the AAAF for the executive assistant, and the committee is looking at funding that from municipal, I don't want to say sponsorship, but I think you know what I mean, the contributions. So instead of every attendee at the conference paying a little bit, each municipality is going to chip in the same amount for the same reward, I think is what it boils down to.
Thanks, Todd. And so there is a request for a decision on this that Todd has prepared. And it would be to have a separate line item for ASB conference registration that would specifically be collected to pay for the cost to operate the ASB Provincial Committee. So we're not sure yet what that will be, Todd, the exact amount, but it's not determined.
They had to kind of outline a fee structure starting in 2022, which would be, so that would be collected at next year's provincial conference, and that would be $375 per municipality. And then in 2023, they've indicated it would increase to $500, and then 2024 and 2025 would be the $600.
Right. I see it's in that attachment as well. Yeah. So basically a little bit of more downloading from the province.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wayne, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, first of all, but I also want to make a comment that I think that the province, we're going to see a lot more of these. The province is going to start running short, so we're going to be downloaded with a lot more of these problems. And I guess we just have to figure out that if we want these programs, we have to start paying for them. So I'll make the motion to go for this.
Thanks, Wayne. Other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9.4 is the actual rescinding policy of the CCIP. And I don't know if Todd has anything else to say, or people have questions or comments for Todd or Anne-Marie.
I'll make that motion to rescind.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. And so that takes us to getting back into admin business, the planning and development report, which needs a motion for acceptance or clarification if there are any questions. No hands. Lionel?
I'll move for acceptance.
Okay. Lionel moves for acceptance of the P&D report. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And now we are happy to have Jeff with us to tell us about the land use planning and the bylaw, what's going on. Hi, Jeff. Welcome back. Hope you had a restful holiday. Or is that a silly thing to say to lots of little kids and babies in particular?
It wasn't restful, but it was fantastic. The weather was good and the company was better, so it was great. In here today, just wanted to put this on the agenda as kind of an update and maybe get some direction or input from council here. 2020 was a bit of a whirlwind of a year in planning and development. We went through a transition in service providers and contractual agreements with regards to that. We took on some new responsibilities in administering subdivisions, land use amendments, so on and so forth. And we also are nearing the end of a SWOT analysis that we did. ISL Engineering and Land Services was brought on board to assist us in the day-to-day and as well do the SWOT analysis. And one of the major projects that we identified in the RFP to hire them was the need for a rewrite of our land use bylaw and to update our land use bylaw in an effort to make it a document that was efficient, effective, simple to use for developers, for administration, for MPC, for council. We felt that there was a significant amount of work that needed to be done on it, that an amendment probably wasn't going to cover it. So we identified the need for a rewrite in the RFP. ISL Engineering and Land Services, who we brought on, they did do an outline of their proposed scope of work in their RFP, which is also attached to the council agenda. There are a few refinements that we've made in that, identified in red through that document. So I just want to touch on that document briefly and kind of the process that we're going to go through here in 2021 to amend the land use bylaw. ISL has identified 4 kind of key sections, and on the last page of the work plan, you can see a Gantt chart that kind of shows the proposed timelines for all of the events to take place. The first phase of the project is actually understanding your needs, which we've actually already started with a kickoff meeting in December, and we have another meeting tomorrow to carry that discussion on. Part of that understanding your needs is one of the biggest parts of this project, and we know that for a fact. Is a community consultation plan is currently under development by ISL, and that's going to speak to exactly how we're going to engage the residents and the public and the key stakeholders really in the update of the land use bylaw, and how we're going to engage them and get them involved and give them the opportunity to have their voices heard. So once that community consultation plan is complete, and it may already be, tomorrow we have a meeting with ISL about land use bylaw review and content matrix. we're going to rip apart the existing land use bylaw. We already have a list of concerns and questions and things that we definitely want to focus on in the renewal of this document. So tomorrow, a lot of that is going to take place, and actually breaking down the individual sections and schedules in the land use bylaw before we pick it up and put it back together. After it's been torn down, ISL is going to go away and do a bunch of best practices research. We're going to identify some municipalities who we feel have a great handle on an efficient, effective land use bylaw and kind of compare ourselves to what they're doing. And then phase one is going to be wrapped up with a working committee orientation. I'll just touch on the working committee a little bit. We internally, we discussed it, and it was identified in the RFP that we should have a working committee to work through this project, and we kind of left it at the direction of the proponents to discuss how they would implement that. ISL wants to implement a working committee here through the process with 3 meetings is what it's going to be in the next 10 months. But on top of those meetings, there's definitely going to be some review and responses and feedback required when we get to phase 2 of actually putting that land use bylaw back together, section by section. We're going to need the working committee members to relatively quickly get comments back so that we can achieve our goals and meet our timeline. Moving on to the section by section preparation, that's just what it is they'll prepare one section at a time independently of the others, and we're going to review them and work through it with them the whole way through. At the end of phase 2, by the time it's all done and we've met, we're going to have another working committee meeting, and ISL is going to consolidate that land use bylaw back into one firm document, hopefully much shorter than what we have today and a lot easier to work with. And at that time, we're going to go out probably early summer, late spring here, go out to some community consultation. This is really interesting right now to be talking community consultation with everything going on, and there's probably lots of questions. What are we going to do? Well, our goal is in the end to have in-person community consultation. Whether that's a reality at the time or not is remains a question and up in the air. But I do think in-person consultation, we're going to receive some of the best, most useful feedback. But the nice thing about this is our community consultation plan after our meeting tomorrow will be very fluent, and we're going to have a lot of options based on what the reality is of the environment here when we move into that phase. And then if we have to go to an alternative solution, we've got online open houses that ISL is comfortable with doing, and they've done very much. And we've got a number of different options to work with that. After we're done with the community consultation, which is going to be based on the plan that ISL prepares, we're going to move into refinement and adoption, circulation to the necessary parties, adjacents, IDPs, things like that. Even other organizations that have interest in this and may have good comments back. We're going to send it off for legal review, and then finalization and drafting of the land use bylaw and the mapping, and then the bylaw adoption, hopefully in September of this year. That was a real whirlwind really quickly. A few other things that I just wanted to touch on is, again, with the working committee, we feel it is very important to have a working committee and get a range of people, departments, organizations, positions on this working committee. So in discussion internally, we think we do believe that it would be very beneficial to have council become part of this working committee. So I'm not asking for a want or direction right now, but at least to give it some consideration for 2 to 3 interested councillors that would have time and the capability to sit on this working committee, understanding that there are 3 meetings throughout the year here, and then there's going to be a little bit of a time frame during the section by section preparation where we will be soliciting feedback on those individually prepared sections. we do think it's a good idea. As you know, our council here has been through a lot with planning and development over the last 2 years and the last decade to 12 years. Have a lot of good experience, and you guys have heard the issues and the concerns that have come out of this. And I think to have that as part of the working committee and to be able to provide comments from your perspective, council and MPC's perspective, is extremely important in this process as well. So I'll leave that with you guys for now. Other than that, the costs and funding sources for this land use bylaw rewrite, $110,000. It's was approved in the interim budget. I not ashamed to say that it probably looks like a lot of money for a land use bylaw rewrite, but in reviewing the RFPs, I think it was pretty much a consensus between the department that this wasn't the highest land use bylaw proposal, and it definitely wasn't the lowest either. But we feel it is what's necessary to give us, in the end, a document that is going to be useful and is going to stand the test of time and the test of developers using it and using it happily. So that's there. Monies are in the budget, and yeah, I'm open to any questions. I've talked for long enough here that council might have.
Thanks, Jeff. Clarence?
So Jeff, when we talk about engaging the public, I think you have to be a little bit selective. I'm not too sure how many people, and I guess I'd just be talking for myself before I got on council, have any clue about a land use bylaw. Most of us know how far we're supposed to be away from the road with a building and that type of thing, but further than that, we really don't have a clue as general citizens. So I'd strongly recommend that we get some direction from people who have used the bylaw in the past 4 or 5 years. And I guess this present one isn't even that old, so I think it was probably only going on 3 now, I think. But I'm not too sure how much valuable information we can get from the general public who really are never involved in land use bylaws unless they are developing something. And that's why I'm really suggesting that we get to talking to people who used it in the last number of years, who are developers, who have had to make sure that they're in compliance with it. Because on the regular basis, regular people, and I include myself before I was on council, we don't have a clue what's in this thing. Or do we work until we have to build something? And until you do, you really don't know how to, what really do you have if you don't use it, if you never used it, and maybe won't use it, other than a few very basic things. How can you really get feedback from someone like that? So just maybe some comment on that.
Jeff? Lionel?
I wholeheartedly agree with that comment, and I am 100% on board with it. I think what we've been talking about, the last 6 to 12 months with the shift in focus and what we're doing in the department and trying to enable and facilitate development while still upholding the controls is key to what you were saying there, Clarence. One of our big goals in 2021, not only through this land use bylaw rewrite and the community consultation plan, is going to speak more specifically to this, but one of the biggest issues we face day to day is just that the key point that you stated is that the majority of the general public are completely unaware probably of what a land use bylaw is, what it says inside it, and what their responsibilities are with respect to that. And that goes from, we talk about people subdividing multiple lots right down to people building a deck over 200 square feet. are all things that fall in line and are governed by this land use framework. So absolutely, positively, 100% education is going to be our goal this year, and it is for those people that probably don't have the experience. Secondly, I forget where I was going with that train of thought, but yes, you're talking about people that have used the land use bylaw. Absolutely, internally, we're discussing right now, and you know, those people that we could maybe garner some more significant advice from or whatnot. We are discussing the possibility of even inviting some of those externals, whether be it other organizations like the EID or even members of the public that have a history of significant development, even to come in and sit on our steering committee. I mean, there's not much we can offer them other than, you know, that they will be able to sit with us and have those same discussions that we're having in creating this document that's going to hopefully help facilitate more development going forward. So definitely both points very well noted and taken.
Thanks, Jeff. That's good. And we would have all that information over the years as to what people have, who's been in our offices the most or asking questions or doing developments of a variety of. I think the best thing that might come out of the community participation is a better understanding of the fact there are rules. Because a lot of people would prefer not to believe that there are rules. Lionel, Brian.
Well, I just want to reiterate what Clarence mentioned. Those good points, and I was exactly the same before I got on council. I knew nothing about it, and then both Clarence and I were on the land use review at that time, and got to admit it was all new to me. The whole thing, didn't even know it existed, to be honest with you. And I think most people that do have an opinion on the bylaws are just opposed to something that they butted up against. And so, and this I think is a little more of an umbrella situation than what we went through when we first got on council. But good luck, Jeff.
Wow, that sounds like for whom the bell tolls. Brian.
So I have a little different view. I think that because we sit on council and we review and we look at these applications on a twice a month basis, we do have a better knowledge than going into council, and I think that we need to take responsibility for that. I look at a land use bylaw and I would attack the areas that we are continually having to provide variances for. And that's just one part of it. Because that to me tells you where perhaps our land use bylaw is either falling short or doesn't fit the needs of our communities. And we see that. And as much as I respect Clarence and Lionel's opinion, you know, that you have to ask developers, I think we see that, and not only as councillors, but as our staff getting the feedback from those developers, I think we can put together a land use bylaw that does provide the needs for our community. And it's not going to be perfect, but I think we can. I'm confident that this council can do that in the time that you've outlined, Jeff. So I want councils to be involved in this. I want the input from developers and people outside that have their opinion. That's why you have open houses. That's why you have those engagements. And but I do think we need to own this and take responsibility for it and participate in this endeavor.
That almost sounds like a volunteer, Jeff.
I knew I should have kept my mouth shut. I actually participated in the first one. So maybe that's a rite of passage, because I remember the first council that I sat on, we did a land use rewrite and I was part of that. And it was the worst 10 months of my life, but no, I'm kidding. It wasn't that bad. I learned a lot, but you know what? I would actually favor people that have sat on council a little longer, maybe a good mix. And we all have experience here, but I think when you've been there, you've seen a little bit more. I don't think I was on the land use bylaw rewrite at the right time because I was in a learning mode, not in a position where I could provide a lot of feedback. And I think Anne-Marie Phillipson is the one that volunteered me to be on there. And it was sort of like, you know how they have a hazing for teams? I think that's what it ended up being. I had to carry everybody's hockey bags. And that's what it felt like at the time. But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't want to be part, but I don't know if I'm the right person. I'm not, land use and MPC is not something that I feel a big attraction for. So I think there's others out there that would do a better job.
Anne-Marie.
Well, what I was thinking is Clarence is from the Rolling Hills area, so a farming community mostly, and he's the chair of MPC. Tracy is the vice chair of MPC, and she's more closer to the surrounding area of Brooks. So I'm going to make the motion to appoint those two if they're willing. And I was wondering if, you know, I don't think we need 3 councillors, but maybe somebody from Municipal Services, or was that automatically already? Because they deal with the roads and they need drainage, ditches, setbacks.
Jeff, you're muted. Muted. Maybe, have you annoyed Todd recently?
I don't know what's going on. I see Jeff's line is wide open, and I don't know why he can't talk.
Try again, Jeff. No.
You can come to my office, Jeff.
Maybe I could try to speak on Jeff's behalf.
Go ahead. Oh, Jeff.
Jeff and I were both just talking this morning about having municipal services and maybe some other departments with their boots on the ground having input on the land use bylaw. I think that that's really important because roads play a huge part and development really affects that. So I think that that's very important. We have also discussed different potential developers or people who have done development in the past. And I think that the tough part with the County of Newell versus a larger center is that we don't have developers that do numerous developments and that are very fluent in the land use bylaw and use it on a day-to-day basis like someone would in Rocky View County or the city of Calgary. And that's maybe where we'll have some limitations, but I definitely do think it's important to have public input at some part of the process.
Jeff, are you back somewhere?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, I'm back. Great. Maria probably answered all your questions while I was gone anyways, so.
She did mention that municipal services will be a part of the feedback group.
For sure. We haven't finalized our list yet, but we've definitely got some great ideas of who and organizations and developers to help assist us in this for sure. I mean, the nice thing about the land use bylaw, you know, even us sitting here, we probably all think, you know, oh, well, the setbacks are first thing that come to mind and everything else. But, you know, there's a number of processes that we can look at working on here too, and that are contained within the land use use bylaw, things like, development authority. What does MPC approve? What does the development officer approve? Are we being efficient and effective with that right now? Because from the end user standpoint, and I'm not sure who said it, but the rub that a lot of people get is the timeline, the waiting, and to bring discretionary permits before MPC where it requires circulation and weeks and weeks and weeks of waiting for no discussion and approval. That doesn't make sense either. Other processes that we talk about, exempting agricultural buildings and agricultural structures. Well, this is a great time to have that discussion too. Is do we exempt them? Do we make the permits free of charge so we can better control some of those things? There's a lot. I'm trying to get at the point. There's a lot from the process and the efficiency side of things, as well as the measurable standards side of things that we're going to try to knock off and deal with here.
Good. Thank you. Well, Anne-Marie had made a motion that we appoint our two people that are associated with the MPC group at the present time, Clarence and Tracy. And Clarence and Tracy, are you both willing to participate in this exercise? It looks like there's 3 meetings going forward. Yes, Trace and Clarence?
Well, yes, no problem. But I think there was 2 people that spoke that could have a lot of input also. And one is the former MPC chair who seems to know more about planning and development than any other rest of us on council. And the other one was Mr. De Jong, who thought I was agreeing with him, but I certainly wasn't. They both have some unique things to bring to the table, and if either one of them would also join our group of 2, that would be fantastic, in my opinion.
Okay, I'd like to add Anne-Marie's name to that list of 3, if that's okay, Anne-Marie. You're making a motion for 3 then instead of just 2.
I know. Is 2 enough? Like I'm okay just letting those 2 do it. They're good. And because I do remember from the last time when we had 5 or 6 around the table, that was just mayhem. That was crazy. Right, Wayne? I see you nod your head. So I don't know. If the majority feels that we need to have 3, sure, I'll go on. But otherwise, let's just stick to 2.
Lionel?
Well, I think 1 extra head in there wouldn't hurt, because there are other ideas that come forward from more people, and I would go with 3 personally.
So the motion has changed to become Lionel's motion, and he is moving that Clarence, Anne-Marie, and Tracy be on the committee. Okay, Anne-Marie? And everybody's got thumbs up on that, so sounds good to me. So all in favor of the 3 on the committee? Opposed? Motion is carried. I am glad that throughout my many years on council, I have expressed my total distaste for the whole MPC thing. No one would ever nominate me for this committee, and I'm really proud of that fact. It's just not a thing that intrigues me at all.
Remember how 14 years ago, I was just so adamant that we had to be consistent every time again. We got to be consistent. Well, that went out the window.
Well, and I liked that going out the window because that was when Diane Horvath said there is no precedent in planning. So I held on to that for the rest of my time. All right, we have high hopes for simplicity, clarity, and service to the people that use this, because as has been pointed out, the majority of residents never need to know what a land use bylaw is. It would be good if at the end of this more people are aware that there are rules, and it's good to take a look at them or ask questions before you start development rather than after. So, Jeff, anything else today?
Nothing, I don't think, on the land use bylaw update, other than we're all really excited to dive into it here. I mean, I can just speak to the next item too, very briefly. It was the update to a municipal development plan by the Village of Duchess being circulated for council comments. I read through the MDP. It got added to the agenda late, so I don't expect many people have got through it. I guess just my thoughts. I think it contains everything that an MDP needs to contain by legislation, and I think there's some good points in it. I don't think it has much effect on the county. It really points towards the village substantially. It's really interesting. You know, Village of Duchess, Town of Bazzano, Vulcan County, over the last 6 months are all redoing their MDP, so they're all getting circulated through our office here. And it's interesting to read the different MDPs written by different people, different organizations, things like that, because we do know that before too long here, once our land use bylaw is taken care of, that our MDP, the county MDP, requires an update, and we are going to plan on doing that in 2022. But you know, an MDP is a very high-level document that talks about paints the picture of how a municipality is going to change and grow and develop over the next 10, 20, 30 years. I think it needs to be general. I think it needs to have strong policies, and I think it needs to not handcuff administration or council or MPC at all, and make it too onersome to administer it. This is quite a wordy document, but like I say, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all on who's going to be administering it. So I have no comments for change on it, and if council does have any comments, they can get back to myself, Maria, and we can get those comments back by, I think it was the end of the month that they were looking for comments back by.
So Jeff, I'm curious, were all of the documents for the MDPs that are the drafted ones all ORSC prepared?
I believe so.
By different members.
Yeah, I do believe the Town of Bazzano was for sure. It was circulated by Madeline at ORSC. This one was by Diane. And I'm not sure about the Vulcan County one. It looks like an ORSC document, but I'm not 100% sure that they authored it. It has the same formatting.
Well, certainly, I did skim through the Duchess one, and I looked at how many pages it was to begin with, and I just immediately concluded it was too long of a document. I don't know if it's just my aging sense of how I have I don't know, less interest in certain things or something, but it isn't something that I think needs to be that long. Kelly.
Good point made, Molly. My question is the Bazzano exchange. About 4 years ago, Jeff, before you took this position, the town of Bazzano started a process to swap land, in other words, to change their borders. And kind of fell away, and I just wonder if you've heard anything about it.
You're right, Kelly. I was made aware of this when I first started. I believe the town went away from it for a while, but I believe there may have been some recent conversations. I'm not sure if Lane's on the line. He might be able to provide a better update, because I believe that Amanda may have been speaking with somebody, but not myself.
The reason I ask is because I get asked by the ratepayers that are involved, right?
Mhm.
There's not many of them, but I do get asked, and it just, I have no information on it.
I can definitely follow that up for you and get some information back to you. Like I say, it was on the radar. Then it kind of fell off. We did have a budget line actually attributed to it for 1 or 2 years there, but currently we took that out because it had fallen off. But I'll follow up and get back to you for sure on that.
Anne-Marie?
I also have a general question for Jeff. The lights at the overpass, are they going to be activated or just stay like this until the development starts?
No, they are going to be activated. We had hoped to have them active prior to the holidays here. Unfortunately, one of they're going to be run on camera sensors, so they're not timed. The lights will change when people pull up to the stop bars on the side roads to help the through traffic on 2nd Street. And the cameras for that detection hadn't arrived yet. They're supposed to be arriving here next week. So before the end of January, we will have the commissioning of that. We had thought about bagging the stop signs and just putting them into a flash mode over the holidays, but you know, cooler heads prevailed, and we figured if there was an issue with them, nobody wanted to deal with them through the holidays. So we've just got them turned out now, but they should be operational here in the next couple of weeks.
So Jeff, you will let Duchess know that we have no concerns about their bylaw then, or their draft MDP?
Yep, we'll get the response back to them for sure.
Anything else then, Jeff?
I think that's all I've got today.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? Seeing none, thank you, Jeff. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You bet. All right. Is Mr. Fetsky around? He's usually lurking around in the background somewhere.
Happy New Year. You make me sound a little bit like a creep.
No, I just remember the last time I thought that there's no way that you could just flow into our agenda. There you were. And there you are. That's wonderful. Welcome, Matt. Hope you had a great holiday and back right in the swing of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the time off. It was nice.
Good, good. And so we today are looking at some record discussion for a start, I think.
Yeah, Rosemary. So this one should be relatively easy. The CAO from Rosemary at the end of last year sent some information to us. We kind of had an impromptu meeting between Kevin, myself, the Reeve, Deputy Reeve, and Div 7 Councillor. And so we thought we'd just punt it to Council as a whole to make a decision on forming a committee to get things in place with Rosemary's rec agreement. The ICF that we had signed with them said we'd get things in place by March 31st. Judging by the information that we got from Rosemary, I think we should be able to hammer through it relatively quickly here. So I guess we're just looking for volunteers for the committee.
Tracy and Anne-Marie.
So can we not leave it with the three that currently had started? So Molly, Brian, and Ellen, as you've already kind of started the process. Would you carry on? No? Oh,
Tracy.
Kelly. Deputy is Kelly now, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ellen has her hand up in response, I believe.
Yes. Can you hear me? I'm just wondering, Clarence, where are you? There you are. if you would be interested in taking my spot, since you were involved with the Duchess recreation agreement as well, I'm thinking it's probably going to be a bit similar. So would you consider taking my spot?
Alan, you've got to be on that committee. I mean, that's your area. There's no way that I have any knowledge of what rural part around Rosemary has that is anywhere close to what you have. And that's your area. You should be on that committee. I don't think there's any way out of that for you. It's imperative, I think, that you're on it.
I do realize that. However, I did notice that Brian did not go on the Duchess one either, and I have similar concerns. So perhaps someone else is interested. Wayne, maybe you are interested if Clarence is not.
Ellen, I just said I think you should be involved, but that's just my opinion. If you have real good reasons why you're not, that's fine, but I'll leave it up to council.
Anne-Marie?
I agree with Ellen because this is a different committee. Ellen will be on the rec board once it's established, but this is the ICF negotiation, and the councillor of that area has never been involved. We were always really careful of having a separate committee. So Ellen will be on there once it's all established, just like Brian is on the ICF recreation committee in Duchess now. But as far as starting the discussion, I agree. It should maybe be the same group, which is Clarence, Kelly, and Molly. Or, Clarence, if you would rather not, then yeah, let's put Wayne maybe if you're interested, or who else?
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten that we had done that before, so whatever's council's wish. Serve if I have to.
I'm good with whatever.
So, Marie, do you want to make a motion, or somebody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion that we appoint Molly, Kelly, and Wayne on the ICF committee for Rosemary.
All right. All in favor of the motion? Oh, Anne-Marie has raised her hand. That's to vote, I take it? To vote? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So that covers the Rosemary one, Matt. We just have to have a meeting, I guess, again, eventually here.
Yeah, so now that we've got members, I'll reach out to you and rope Sharon in for some potential meeting dates where we can kick things off.
Okay. So we'll move on to the Brooks Fire and Rec agreements.
Yeah, so I thought we were all good with the Brooks Fire and Rec agreement. And I think, as with any agreements, the more you look at them, the more you think you can kind of wordsmith them to round off some of the rough edges kind of a thing. And that's what we've got here. After we had approved and sent back to the city, there were some comments that came back, and they just wanted to really wordsmith a few minor items here. The first one, 4.3, the way it read originally, they had some concern that it read such that their 10-year capital plan would be subject to our council approval, and that's not what the intent was. The intent is that we both approve an updated Schedule A, the source of which the projects come from the city's capital plan. So that one I didn't think was too bad to wordsmith. puts the emphasis on approving the updated Schedule A. And then 10.2, I think, is really just about rounding off maybe some potentially sharp edges if we ever move to terminate the agreement. And I think this is already baked into the agreement, the intent that we would, look to make amendments prior to just pulling the trigger on terminating it. So that's the change you see in 10.2 there. We've reviewed this with the ICF committee that negotiated with Brooks, and I think we're in a position where we can recommend it for approval. As a final note, I did receive the signed agreements back from the city on Tuesday there. So they're signed, just pending these amendments and our new signatures on it.
So questions or a motion? Kelly?
A motion, please, with glee. Your mic is off, Molly.
Option 1 to approve the amendments to the agreements as submitted is moved by Kelly, and I think it's all with glee and with thanks to the committee for their work on this as well. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Matt, for that and your approach to your hands-on approach to taking the ball and running with it, I think, and getting this all finished off. Much appreciated. And we'll go on to tax write-offs.
Yeah, I don't like this next one. So this RFP in front of you is looking at a recommendation to write off some of the bad debts that we've accumulated over the years on oil and gas companies not paying their taxes. Really, the lion's share of this is related to one company that went into receivership. The assets have since sold, which is hopefully a good news story for us that the new operator will be a better going concern and able to settle their taxes moving forward. So two parts to this: writing off the taxes and then putting an application into the Provincial Education Requisition Credit and the Designated Industrial Requisition Credit programs to hopefully get some of those dollars back. I did send out the appendix with all of the details of the companies, the roles, and the related taxes and penalties for each of those that we're looking at writing off. Council does have the ability under the MGA to cancel tax arrears. So total amount we're looking at just under $1 million, $911,391. That will be applied against, as Houston Oil's been in transition for a number of years now, so this isn't a surprise to us that we've got this balance to write off. We had set up $659,000 and change in an allowance for uncollectible taxes, and then in 2020 we knew that their current year taxes would also be uncollectible, and we set up a provision of $280,000 for that. So we've built this into our financial plan. Hopefully the province will approve our application and we'll get $169,000 back in the form of education and designated industrial property requisition credits back to us.
Clarence?
So how does somebody sell when they have a liability and not really noted in the sale?
It would have been noted in the sale. This all goes to receiver, and then the receiver, whichever one's appointed, Hardy and Kelly, Deloitte, whoever it might be, they take possession of the assets of the company, and then they start going through the list of creditors, in ranked order. And as we learned through the Virginia Hills case that went to Court of Queen's Bench, the court does not consider linear property taxes to be a secured interest, which is truly unfortunate for us. So where, you know, if you're a resident or you have a commercial property and you haven't paid your taxes, we have pretty straightforward procedures to go about recovering the taxes from those properties. We seize the property, we take title to it. The same provisions aren't in place for linear properties, which, you know, in this case, Houston Oil, over a period of years, it's nearly $900,000 just on that one company alone. I think we've done pretty good in the county overall. We haven't had to take the same kind of baths that you see happening in MD of Greenview, places further north. But I never like to say goodbye to tax dollars. Those are an obligation of anybody who benefits from operating in the County of Newell, which has great resources available for people to tap into and benefit from. They also have that obligation back to the community to pay their taxes.
So I hear there is no hope of collecting from the new owner.
No, where the new owner just buys the assets, the liabilities doesn't come with it. If the new owner bought the company, Houston Oil, well, they'd also be assuming the liabilities. But Houston Oil will be struck from the corporate registry. They've gone bust.
So, and we did not rank once the seller got their dollars, we didn't rank anywhere close to being able to collect some of those dollars.
Right, and to give a little bit of history as well, we have engaged legal services on trying to chase these linear taxes owing. We've spent a good deal of money on lawyers, and we're still just sitting here holding the bag. There's no teeth when it comes to recovery on this linear stuff. It's really, really unfortunate where we have such a large exposure to that segment in our property tax mix that we really don't have any teeth on collection. We've stopped short of suing individual companies directly prior to receivership, and I think that's maybe the last recourse that we would have, is to, you know, look at potentially putting a policy in place where we don't let these arrears accumulate to such an extent before we force the issue. We take them to court, and we might be the ones to get that claim in that actually bankrupts the company, triggers you know, ill consequences with their banks who are looking at secured credit and things like that. But that becomes kind of a touchy thing as well, because a lot of these will be smaller oil and gas operators who you might know from the community, kind of a thing. So unfortunately, I don't have a real good solution for council on how you go about recovering these. But I think something needs to happen in terms of our process and procedures where we pull the plug on these types of things earlier. We don't let 4 or 5 years accumulate. We look at working with these guys, putting them into a tax payment agreement. If they can't move on that, then we move to litigate and sue.
So is that something you can do internally as management, or is that something you have to do?
I'm working on a collections policy that I hope to have in front of council before the end of February to kind of legitimize management moving forward on that. But everybody being on the same page for what the thresholds would be for that, because the legal's expensive. It's not surefire, but I think really it's better for us to, and I hate saying it, it's better for the county to potentially bankrupt a company and have those assets moved to a company that is successful at managing oil and gas properties and is a good corporate partner and pays their taxes, versus being in a situation like this where I bring a $1 million write-off to council.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, you mentioned that Houston has been bought, like all of its properties have been bought by one company.
I'm not sure if all of them were. It's a pretty long list, and you know, it's pages upon pages, and I can't remember the name of the outfit off the top of my head, but it was, I believe it was the fellow who had reached out to you in the fall to kind of talk about their assets. So that sale did go through as part of the receivership process.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting because they're determined that they can turn things around. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yes. Brian.
I'd reluctantly like to make a motion to accept to approve the recommendation as submitted by council for this write-off, or submitted by administration.
Any further discussion? I just hope that the province realizes what they're setting a lot of rural municipalities up for, with the lack of interest in trying to do something different with these companies so that they can't just walk away from their tax bills. It's craziness. Anyhow, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks for your ongoing work on this, Matt.
Yes, thank you.
From a money man's perspective, it must be really quite annoying.
What has been really troublesome to me is where you can spend, you know, upwards of tens of thousands of dollars on legal opinions and trying to sort out a way to recover these. And at the end of the day, it comes back to the legislation just being impotent on this issue. The MGA will need to change before there's really any recourse for us, and it needs to change. It can't continue the way it has been in the past.
Yeah, I'd be really pleased if the County of Newell all of a sudden owned some of these properties as a result of back taxes, because I'm sure that we could do something better with them than what's happening. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Is that it for you today?
Yeah, you bet. That's it.
All right. Take care. All right, we're on to the Rural Municipalities Alberta Board Governance Review Member Survey. And some of you may have done this on your own, but they wanted one response from municipalities. And being a responsible member of RMA, we will, of course, get on with this. Todd just texted me to say, Clarence, you had your hand up. I apologize. I just carried on. Did you have something for Matt, I bet?
Yeah, I did. I'll talk to him sometime. Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right, so RMA survey. The one thing I discovered looking at this is how, I know we've done these before because it's every, 4 or 5 years they do this governance review thing, but it's not an area that I put much thought into, the RMA board. It seems to always have been small and efficient and got the jobs done, and they're certainly not being overpaid for the work they do, was my sort of overall feeling about this. But anyhow, we'll take a look at the surveys. So first question, is there a need to consider changes to the membership eligibility? And if you took a look at this, there are, of course, different levels of membership, the biggest one being like we are, a rural county, rural municipality, first of all, but there's also members, associate type members that can belong to be part of the business group. And I guess a municipality can apply to be a member of the rural association if they fit certain criteria. So did anyone feel there's a need to consider changes in those slots that people would, or municipalities would be in? Wayne?
I think there was a feeling out there that quite a few of the smaller villages and stuff in Alberta would like to join our RMA as voting members, because I think a lot of them don't believe they're getting any support from AUMA, and this came back a few years ago, I think. So I'd just like to get the feeling of the council on that idea.
Well, we could certainly give them, ask them that question, you know, are there small urbans that would feel more comfortable within our group, or is that something they look at? What are your thoughts, councillors? No thoughts? Brian?
Well, I think I'm turned off here. There we go. I guess I'm just wondering how that voting structure would work. Are you saying that a municipality that is less than, still has village status, but barely would have the same vote as a county? Because that could certainly make a difference as far as direction, right? So I haven't thought a great deal about it, but I like the way that actually as messed up as some of our resolutions, and I know we'll get to that later on. That's really the thing, the area where I think this is, as far as the membership goes, I'm pretty happy with the way it's set out and the way the districts are lined up too. Not being much familiar with the other districts, but with ours, I think it does represent our areas quite well. So I'm happy with the way it is now.
And if a village is interested in becoming part of the RMA, they can dissolve and become a hamlet? I don't know. That is one solution, right?
I just threw it out there and see what everybody thought. But
well, we have it here. So Tilly was a village. Now we have Hubie representing the Tilly and the Tilly area. Has it been detrimental to our county? Absolutely not. You bring a different perspective from the village that none of us have, and it's valuable. So that is a method. And if you feel that you know, it's that detrimental, well, then we probably should stay with a different group. But.
Hubie?
Well, in the time when they dissolved, there were 7 villages in Alberta same year, so that tells you the story right there. That's what they can do if they want to.
So we should leave it alone, basically. I think I'm hearing is the Wayne agrees. There's the way it's laid out is good. Is there a need to change or consider changes to the membership space? I'm thinking no. Does the current district structure and boundaries properly represent RMA's full members? If not, how could they be changed? Well, I think our boundaries and our zones are, I have no trouble with them. Does anybody else? Going on to the board structure. Certainly it's a lean, mean machine. 1 president, 1 vice president, 5 district directors. Think that's good? It's working well, we think. Is the geographic area and number of munis represented by board directors appropriate? I think from a Foothills Little Bow, I feel as though we're represented fine. Is geographically based board representation the ideal structure? If not, what alternate structure should be considered? I'm not sure with rural how else you could do it very well. I guess you could go by numbers or something, you know, if Foothills Little Bow has 1,000 members, which they wouldn't have, but, you know, they get to have 1 rep, and if you have 500, you get to have 0.5 rep or something, but I don't see anybody wanting to change that. Should there be a position, this is a good question, on the board for a municipal administrator representative? My personal belief is that some of the things that have happened, for example, with the assessment review business, that if they perhaps had more of an administrative eye on things, that might, well, it might not have made a difference because the government seemed to have their own plan for that. But what do you guys think about that concept? Clarence, you can't say only if it's Kevin Stevenson.
Well, I was going to volunteer a retired administrator for that position. I thought that would be a good way to keep him out of trouble.
Now, who would that be, Clarence?
Oh, I don't know, but he's laughing, so he must think it's a good idea.
Isn't that funny how sure most councils would be doing this and never think that that would be a good idea, but we all do. Brian.
Well, you know, but I mean, it brings up a really interesting point, and I guess I would ask Kevin about the relationship that like somebody like Gerald would have with his board. I mean, I would like to think that he has a big impact on the board of directors by the way he presents, you know, information and the way he does that. Personally, I think that a position from a municipal administrator would be valuable to that board. But I guess I just don't understand how Gerald influences that board, or whether he has any sort of a perspective that they would look to say to help with the direction in their decision making. We rely on Kevin a lot for when we have that information, and we need that information. I don't know if the board is able to tap into that same sort of resource. So without knowing the answer, I would say yes, but maybe I'd defer to Kevin for his perspective on it.
Kevin.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea and concept, but I never like to see any administrations as a part of a decision-making body. It's one thing to be a working committee. I do think that RMA could use more administration working committees to prepare for the political side of it, because Gerald is a former administrator and he knows administration, but he's been outside of feet on the ground for quite a while. And so, you know, a lot of these files, you know, when they did the assessment review, they pulled on an administrator. Well, that's great, but these things should have more working committees, I think, to prepare and better represent Alberta as a whole. But I don't necessarily think they need to be on a voting board as a member that votes.
I think there's a part later on, is there not, about committees? Yeah, so maybe we should make that suggestion that they should have, I know that they can pick up the phone and talk to the Kevin Stevensons of the world, but if it's, as Kevin points out, if it's a group that's there, it might be a more useful way to go about go about it. So we'll go on. And in your view, should the role of the RMA board be changed or modified? Are board members currently accountable to the membership overall in their districts? I think so. If not, how could accountability be improved? So should there be a term limit on how long a board member, director, vice president, president can be on the RMA board? I think we've always said that the people that put you there can decide what that time limit is. Are current election processes appropriate? It's very interesting when you look at what some of the other provinces do, but I think Alberta keeps it very, very plain, simple, time, not a lot of time spent on elections. Or Brian?
Well, try not to laugh, you guys, but I think there should be a limit on number of times a former president can be allowed to participate in the meeting. So.
Well, it'll have changed with Al's departure, so that's good, Brian. Should there be a nomination deadline in advance of the fall convention requiring use of a returning officer? I mean, we go to convention in the fall and we know that there's going to be some elections and it's all done right there, and we go off to the room and somebody comes out the winner. And okay, not seeing any hands or suggestions in regards to that. On to 5.1, effectiveness of the resolution process used to seek overall membership direction. Everybody gets a vote, I guess. Brian?
I think this is one thing they really have to work on. When we see 25 resolutions come to the floor, they need to vet this down to make it a more palatable number, so that the ones and you know, I don't know who does this or how they do it. I don't necessarily have the answer. I just know that it's a problem when you're dealing with over 20 resolutions twice a year. They become so watered down that there really isn't, I don't believe, a lot of great discussion that goes around the ones that are really relevant to how we can influence government. And that's a general statement. It doesn't provide solutions, but I think we have a problem here.
Clarence. Thanks, Brian.
Well, I've hammered away at this forever. And I think you just have to set a limit. You say that you give the board the challenge. You figure out a number. Might be 4, 6 per session that you're going to bring forward, and you're going to really work on those. The rest of them are just making anyway. You pick the 4 or 6 most important ones, and that's what you bring forward. Pick a number, whatever that number might be. But work on those and just hammer away at it, rather than having 20 and nobody even can remember the first one when the 10th one comes along. So I just think we have far too many. And a lot of them they're almost kind of like, you know, they're just managerial stuff. But if you can get what's really, really important to you at that particular time and in that particular situation and work on those, and that's where your energy is. And that way you can stay lean, and someone has to decide where your priorities are.
So it would be a recommendation to limit the number of resolutions for a start.
I think it's simply, you can have as many resolutions as you want, but at the end of the day, the board has to decide which one's worth the time, the effort, and the considerable amount of energy that has to be expended to bring those forward and to bring those forward with success. And that takes time, it takes money, and if you have too many, you just can't do it. So leave the managerial stuff alone, and if you can do it by managerial stuff or the president of RMA talking to some ag minister or whoever, municipal affairs minister, and getting it done that way, fine. But the rest of the time, when you're really, the ones you really need to have changed and want to have changed, and there probably only are, there are less than half a dozen. There's probably one or two that are really important. They're just Mickey Mouse stuff. And maybe that's just me talking. I hate resolutions. I think they're a bunch of garbage most of the time. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. But I think you have to just pick it.
Okay, Clarence, Brian, and Ellen.
What about the concept of having one resolution per zone meeting? And you know, I don't, that maybe that doesn't vet the priority ones, but it certainly will vet the one that's priority for that division, for that zone, because they're only going to pick the one that they think is the most important. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it, because they might not be the 5 best ones that are at the convention, but I think it's a start anyways.
Ellen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if a resolution should not cover more issues of a regional nature instead of very localized. You know, if it's just one little area that it covers it, should it not be more of a regional nature that covers a lot bigger area province-wide? Just a thought.
And with Clarence's suggestion, that would be something I think that would come to the front, because if you had to choose the resolutions that indeed are of provincial nature, then it would eliminate some, I would think. Yes. Wayne?
Well, I agree with Clarence. I think we should limit them to 5. And then every region would have to make darn sure they put a good resolution forward if they want it considered. And the board, they can probably bring 2 or 3 forward, but the board only bring 5 of those resolutions to the convention, and they make the decision on them. And that would actually give RMA staff a lot more to work, concentrate on a lot more than the 20 or 40 resolutions a year. So I agree 100% with what Clarence said.
So we would like them to limit the number of resolutions, pick a number, and ensure that those are resolutions that are worthy of provincial discussion. Good enough? Okay, please share your views on the potential role of committees comprised of RMA members. Consider aspects such as composition, scope, time commitments, purpose, and cost. And I think a committee at times makes sense. And that's where we also could make mention of, you know, committees that would involve municipal administrators for some of the more current political issues. Would there be times where it would make sense to have committees of people besides the board of directors? I'm surprised that they don't do that more often, actually. Brian?
Well, I think we were going along that thing during the assessment model review, trying to be a little bit more proactive just in our area, you know, by using our representative and Paul, and that little group that we struck that included Vulcan, Cyprus, and Paul's administration. Anyway, so there's an example where I think there can be some really good work done, and especially when you look at the different issues that we're facing, whether it's prior to the police costume models, how was that vetted out? What impact did we have on the board, or was there put on the board in order so they could have some working people that would be able to provide that information, as well as the assessment model review? And there's probably a lot of other examples that you guys could come up with. But I think those are scenarios where you could put people that are engaged, that are very knowledgeable about it, and they can bring in even more resources if they need it. But it works pretty good, especially with this digital format. I think you can accomplish a lot.
That's a good thing to mention, Brian. With the digital format, the costs are small, and you could put together a committee and get information very quickly. So it needs to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Kelly?
I don't know how it works now, but maybe that's because they're not set up for working groups. I don't know, but what is the policy around time and cost? If, say, they did set up an assessment review committee, working committee, is that at the municipality's expense, or is that at RMA's expense? I don't know the answers to those questions.
And I don't either. And it's obvious that they don't really do that very often. It's all the same taxpayer, sort of, as we say. The RMA is our organization, and they're, being funded by us. So, yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Kelly, what they would do. So do you think that the relationship between RMA and the districts is good? I think the president and vice presidents that we've had over the years have tried to come out to our meetings and support their directors. And I don't know, it's not something have any of you ever had a visit with, somebody like Brian Bruin, who, well, he wasn't there for very long, but what's that guy's name who represented Foothills Little Bow forever? The smoker guy? The only time I ever talked to him was outside of
Was he from Warner?
Yes. What was his name, you guys?
Bob something.
Yes, you're right. But I mean, it's not something that I've ever given much thought to. I'm glad that people will put their names up to be elected. I was excited that Brian did at that time. But I think the RMA and the districts have a good relationship. Could district meetings be more focused on providing the RMA with member input on issues? And that's up to us, is it not? I mean, we decide what goes on in our district meetings, I think, although for years we couldn't even get away from roast beef, so maybe we don't decide, but I don't know. It's up to us, I think, as the grassroots members. If we don't like what's going on at a district meeting, then we have the power to fix it, correct? I think so. Any, Clarence?
I kind of wonder, how much do we really use RMA? I mean, we're pretty easygoing, but when we really have an issue, do we really use them, or do we just bypass them? You take the assessment review. Well, we did use them, and we stayed with them, but we also kind of bypassed them a little bit and talked to our own MLA and talked to whoever we hopefully could, and that works too. So if you can get RMA on side, but we don't always have the same issues. And RMA can't always take your particular interests forward because, you know, you're one of 60. And there may only be 5 of 60 that's a problem, or 10 of 60. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not knocking them. That's just the position they're in. And we as a municipality, at that point in time, have to make decisions. How do you move this issue forward? And I think we've kind of done that a little bit. We've never been a real political powerhouse or really motivated to do that. But that's what you have to do if you really have an issue. You have to really get involved. And if there really is something that, you know, RMA can't get 100% behind, you go around it. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm not knocking RMA. I think to me, I'm pretty satisfied with them. Can they do better? Well, sometimes they can, but you have to remember that there are 60, 70 other voices, whatever the number is, but I think it's 67, somewhere in there. And they have to represent everybody. So there's a limit to what they can do.
Yes, definitely. And it doesn't stop us from doing other lobbying or using whoever. I mean, we could be using the AUMA president because he's in our locale to work on items through that municipal association even. So, Wayne?
You know, I'm going on my 8th year as councilman, and when we went to convention or even go to Foothills Little Bow, I always have the feeling that we as a county kind of stand us outside. You go to Foothills Little Bow, you've got the southern, you know, you've got Warner and Foothills and all those guys sort of stick together. We're kind of on our own all the time. We go up to Edmonton, again, kind of on our own. So we're a little different than a lot of the municipalities here. I think it has something to do with where maybe we're a little bit further thinking, but so RMA is not really important to us the way Clarence talk, and we grab things by the horn and we try and solve our own problems. So just a feeling I've had. So.
And I think because of our resources that we've had in the past, you're right, Wayne, we have been able to do a lot of that. And we're also, when it comes to Foothills Little Bow, we're on the boundary. I mean, we're close to special areas, but we're also, you know, Cypress and Wheatland is in a different zone. So we are a little bit out there in more ways than one. And I think that does make us different. And I sort of like it. Okay. Board compensation. Any comments on that? I certainly do not think these guys are being overpaid. Did any of you? You know, I for what they have to do. I mean, everybody thinks that flying and driving places is so much fun. Well, you only have to do it on a committee for a few times and you realize it's not much fun at all. It's hard work and having to stay in hotels. And so my comment would be that they're certainly not overpaid for what they do. Ariana, I hope you've got something out of this, and if you have trouble, phone Brian. Just joking. You can call me. Anything else on this topic? All right, we'll consider it done. Moving on to item 10.9, we had a request for a letter of support from Xplornet Communications, which made me realize that you know, I am sort of always tied up with EIDnet, but I know lots of rural people who actually have Xplornet because the EID doesn't work for them or isn't covered by them. So how do you guys feel about writing letters of support for other what are they called? IPSs, internet providers or whatever. Comments? Clarence and Wayne?
Well, I don't totally understand the relationship that would have with, as far as us and EID are concerned. And I think we have to be careful there. And I don't have a good grasp of that. But I certainly wouldn't want to be promoting another company when it was in direct competition with the EID. I don't think that's helpful for our region at this point in time. So I'm looking, that's the only comment I'll make on it. I'm just very leery about that, because we have a pretty valuable resource there, and maybe it's not always the way we like it, but I think there are also things that we probably can do to enhance it if we so desire to. So my first allegiance is still to the people in our district who have provided a service for us when nobody else would. It's one of a kind. I can understand. I might be wrong, but I think it is. And it's important that whatever we do, we make sure that our in this area are served in the best way possible. But I think we have to be tread very carefully here.
Yeah, and Clarence, I would have totally agreed, and I was surprised when we decided, so it went just a couple meetings ago, to write letters of support for a couple of, what was it? Sewa was one of them, and there was another company wanting, it was some support for grants, I think, from the government, something to do with that. And so we wrote 2 letters of support, one for each at that point in time. But I understand your thinking, and that's, yeah, sort of my first go-to place too. Tracy. Lionel.
Well, I know for me, like, I wouldn't be able to have internet if it wasn't for Xplornet. Like, I can't get EID net here. So I think it's, you know, it's not so bad to have competition too. Like, we're not, by providing a letter of support, we're not saying we love Xplornet over EID. We're just saying we support you in applying for this grant. So, you know, I look at it a little bit differently. I'm not being against the EID, or I'm not, you know, forming allegiances with Xplornet, but like I say, I just know I wouldn't have internet if it wasn't for Xplornet.
Lionel.
I'm sort of on Clarence's side on this. And also, when it comes to Sewa is not a competitor with anybody else. So supporting them, they're basically a municipal service. So it's a little different supporting them than this. I'd be a little hesitant with Xplornet.
Other thoughts? Ellen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Tracy, now that the EID has this plan, right, to put these fiber optics in the ground and so on and so forth, after they're done with that, would you be still having a possibility that you would be able to join? I'm just wondering, just curious, because, you know.
Kelly? Did you? Oh, sorry. Tracy, you have an answer? And then Kelly?
Yeah, just I don't have any idea if it would change for me or not. You know, with their proposal, it would hopefully would change, but wouldn't see until it happened. So I couldn't even comment. But thanks for that.
So for me, I'm thinking the same way. I'm thinking on broader strokes. I mean, we had a time in Bazzano where we had to leave the EID and go with TELUS because EID wasn't keeping up to our speed needs. So competition is good. It brings all of us to our attention. And obviously, there are places within the county that are not being served with IP service right now. And so I think a general letter of support, no financial, no promises, I think that's just better for the entire region, including residential and business-wise, economic development.
Other thoughts? I said I sort of have mixed feelings about it because I know sort of along the perimeters, I believe, of the county, there are people who don't get the ID, and they are our ratepayers too. So it's, yeah. Somebody want to put it to a motion, and then we can have a tight-knit vote here, or a tight race vote, which we don't often have. Kelly.
I would make that motion, that we make a general statement of support. And I just want to preface that by saying that I do support EID, and I appreciate all that EID has done in the past and the future for our ratepayers too.
Absolutely. We all do. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated. All right. Moving on to item 1010, Spring 21 Convention online. And I think it's one, is it one registration now, or do we all? No, I guess we all have to be. Okay, Ariana has the registration isn't open yet, but it was about meeting any provincial government ministers or having online meetings with them. So we could have gone to Hawaii if we'd set one up with Tracy, but it's too late for that. What do you want to do, guys? Do you have anybody you want to try and meet with? A new Muni Affairs Minister, or are you just ready to give up on ministers? Brian.
Well, I think this is, after hearing the Premier's speech at our last convention, I think this is going to be ongoing, that we talk about that we provide a very valuable scenario for oil and gas to work in our community, in our county, by a low tax rate. And if that means getting in front of the new Municipal Affairs Minister or Minister of Energy or Finance or whatever, I think we have to keep talking that way, because otherwise we are going to be faced with another situation where we're defending our ability to tax our community, our businesses, and to be competitive. And let's be proactive. Let's work on this. And I don't know who you want to talk to, who would the recommendation be. My initial would be Municipal Affairs, because that's who this runs through. But maybe a Minister of Energy needs to be in our ballpark too, or or finance, because it all comes down to money. And the fact of the matter is I don't think we're done with this threat. We all came to that conclusion after the Premier's address to RMA, and I don't think sitting and waiting for something else to happen is the right move to make. It didn't work last time, so.
So municipal affairs, and who else would you like Ariana to try? And Ariana, do they usually tell us who is available to meet, or can we, I guess we can request meetings too, correct?
Yeah, we did get that one email from the former Minister of Municipal Affairs, but usually, I think Alberta Transportation usually sends a letter, but generally we reach out to them first.
So besides municipal affairs, once we know who that is, who else? We have time. We can think about it and find out. We might know more in a couple of weeks. There could be all sorts of changes. And so why don't we keep it on the agenda, Ariana, for once we see what the convention's about and who's available, who's around. Clarence?
So our main issue is the taxation policies towards oil and gas, and the fact that we don't think that municipalities can all be painted with the same brush. And that we think our tax rates are very competitive and justifiable as such. Other than that, what is the message? What else do we have? And I think we have to have issues that we want to bring forward. And so I'd like us all to think about what message are we bringing forward, and who should we bringing that forward to? And that's the only one I can think of at the present time. But are there others? There probably are. And Mr. Stevenson, don't be afraid to throw in a few if you have some.
Yeah, I think certainly we have to go in with, with an education for the new minister. I'm sure that whoever takes over, whether Rick's going to be full-time or not, I don't know. But I do think we have to make an effort to educate that person with our issues here and what we feel is fair. And obviously the assessment model review is a big concern, especially when they're talking about regulated assessments and changing how the regulations work. Market value ones are a little bit more easy to justify and understandable, even though people may not agree with them. But the province has given us notice that they're taking our designated industrial assessments over. We have to have all the records over to them by July 4th. So that's a concern to a number of us administrators with oil and gas properties, that there's something behind this. Once they control that, then or nobody else looks at it, you'll have no idea what they're going to do with properties that don't produce versus properties that do produce. So I think we need to talk to them about that. I do also think that we need to talk to them about setting a policy that regulates maximum mill rates, because oil and gas companies that want tax breaks, there's a point when tax breaks make sense when a mill rate is way out of whack. Somebody's charging 23 or 25 mils versus another one that's charging 8. That's a big discrepancy. So I think that discussion needs to take place. And then last point I think that needs to take place is, as you heard from Matt before, is we need a means. You can't have a society that's run for services that are based on taxes where you can just hold the money in the bank and ride it out for 5 years and then everybody else eats the bullet on that. They need to put in a means to collect this. Once this system is set up to the new way that it's going to be, I surely hope that municipalities won't have to write off this stuff anymore without being able to secure something, or the end result is not going to be good. Like we're so reliant, 2/3 of our revenue, right? And that's the big fear. So those are the three things that I think that we need to deal with is what their plans are, the monkeying with the assessment, potential talking about mill rate maximum for what oil and gas can be charged ahead of trying to hit everybody with the same brush, and then a means to collect.
Thanks, Kevin. A good trio of things to keep in our mind, and let's keep this on the agenda for the 21st. See what has happened in a couple of weeks, and we've got into February as well to see if there's other ministers. Certainly municipal affairs is key. Brian and Wayne.
Well, I was going to defer some of my question to Lionel, and I guess it revolves around the SEWA application to construct that site, and how far along we are, and whether it would be productive to put a plug in at the minister level for, I would assume, environment, but who else would be in that portfolio? So I'm asking the question of Lionel whether there's work being done on that, or whether it would be productive for us to have that face-to-face or that in online meeting with somebody to put that cause perhaps elevated it somewhat.
Lionel?
Well, SEWA has been to Edmonton many times. I mean, that's part of their process, and they know that this isn't going to move ahead without government intervention. So I don't know whether we can help. Perhaps we can. I guess it wouldn't hurt, but SEWA is in that program all the time, and so I don't know what we can do exactly, except maybe just show support, maybe.
Wayne?
Well, to talk about SEWA, the government will be looking for economic stimulus projects probably in the next year or two, and that would be a great one. And also we have Foothills Littlebow next Friday, and there might be some issues come up there that we want to discuss. So yeah, there's the 21st, we might have a few more ideas on which ministers we want to talk to.
Okay, thanks everybody. Item 10:11, I guess, is off the agenda because we are carrying on with the meeting on the 21st. Item 10:13, Councillor payment sheets. Brian.
I'll make the motion to accept the councillor payment sheets as presented.
All right. Kelly?
This might be a game changer, but a suggestion with my tongue in my cheek. A challenge to all councillors. If you put down the wrong month or don't put in the meeting time of your meeting, you owe the councillor committee that time, it makes it so much more difficult for us if we're reviewing November and it says February on your timesheet. That's one thing. And another thing is if the meeting is from 1 till 3, can't you just put that on your timesheet, and then we know what you're charging for? Otherwise, I have to go back into my day timer or my timesheet to see what the actual time is. It just helps us out a lot.
No, and there's no reason that people can't do that. You should not have to work extra unless that person or those people are willing to pay you extra. Wayne.
I would love to give you the right month, but mine always comes out January 1st, no matter what I do. The heading on the timesheet will be the month, but when I put it down in the column, it's January 1st every time.
I can help you with that. You just talk to your payroll clerk, send her an email. It's just a formatting issue on the Excel spreadsheet. Once you type it in the first time, it'll come up December or February, whatever your month is.
Okay, then I will talk to her.
Yep.
Okay.
Wayne, I haven't been able to figure out how to format mine, so every time I hit it, I have to do it over again. So I've been doing it forever, but I do correct it so individually each spot. Okay, we've got the motion to accept payment sheets. I don't think we voted. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment, and we need a motion for a couple of big checks. Looks like roads and gravel. Ellen moves for the checks for, oh yeah, I skipped ahead. Checks for payment, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And the payment register. Any questions or comments, concerns? Otherwise, a motion to accept those checks. Hubie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And we are at Mark. It's time for his Director of Municipal Services report. And there he is, just like Matt. He's lurking in the wilderness. Hi, Mark.
We're always keeping an eye on council and what you're saying. Got to stay informed somehow, right? Well, happy New Year, everyone. Happy to be joining you for council today. Really, December, a quite short month. Again, with having the thanks for additional time off there through the Christmas season. So not all statistics are from 1 month period because not much happened in the last week and a half or so. There is a tender out for the patrol unit replacement as approved in budget. And we're also working with Faction 4 Smart Squad for fulfilling the Alberta Justice and Solicitor General requirement to move to e-ticketing in municipal enforcement services. With that, we finished out our partner hourly commitments for the year, and most everybody is satisfied with everything that's been going on with us, so that's good. And a review of bylaws continues to be a focus, hopefully bringing some updates, revisions, maybe combining some bylaws into 1 from 3 as we move forward in the new year. Fleet services staff inventory count was completed at the beginning of December as per annual practice, and things look really good there. Operations, road maintenance activities, snow plowing when necessary for grader operators and truck drivers. Otherwise, grader operators are performing vegetation management with tree cutting and brush control, and truck drivers are hauling their annual stockpile quantities. And at time of preparation of this report, they were 62% complete stockpiling, so we are well ahead of the game this year. Knock on wood, because winter storm events can slow that progress in a hurry. Summary of what maintenance operators has been included in there with the various work orders that they've been working on. You spoke to Jeff earlier about 15th Avenue and the traffic control lights and what's happening there. Rural Water Project Phase 2, MPE Engineering continues working on that. The draft report has received comments and provided back to MPE for amendment. So we're waiting for some additional information returned to us to review before moving it to council. Stimulus funding for Range Road 14-5 was awarded, so we'll be getting a start on getting some engineer design and stuff going in that regard. Not to forget, but that's from the Bow Slope shipping area or Blue Line trucking going south from the existing end of pavement to city limits. Long-term aggregate supply request for proposal closed and is under evaluation by the department, and Jeff is hoping to award that work earlier in the new year here. Other business, still working on municipal services professional development plans, trying to collaborate with the other departments to get everybody on a similar state of practice with that. Strategic plans, SWOT analysis, those fun things. We did close the Scandia and Rolling Hills wastewater lagoon farmed lands lease yesterday. We have a final closing date of January 15th on that, partly due to the fact that Scandia has the right of first refusal offer on it. So that current tenant has that opportunity extended to them right now, and hopefully we'll be awarding that in the near future. I can advise council that rates are in the ballpark of what market value is for sure. They were very good to see. And my notes on here, Scandia received 5 bids and Rolling Hills received 4 bids. So we did have a competitive process in that. What else can I say here? I didn't have an update to the permit activity report, but I did get one when I got back in the office here on Monday. So December's month-end statistics were 128 permits issued, bringing the grand total up to 1,619 permits for the year, which is approximately 52% less than previous year. And I don't anticipate much change in those statistics moving into the new year if COVID restrictions and the hit to the oil and gas sector continue to take place. So be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Just keep in mind that the land lease opportunity is still open and not closed.
Anne-Marie and Clarence.
Okay, I will not ask a question about the land lease then, Mark. My question is about 14.5. Is there a communication process with the city of Brooks? Because we're going to have a beautiful road there until we hit the city limits, and then it's kind of there is a hard surface, but not very good.
Yeah.
So how's the communication?
Well, the city elected to make the decision 5-6 years ago at least to take recycled asphalt chips from their street improvement projects and do that as their treatment and surfacing to that road, because within the city it was even a poor road. We have not really got into the nit and grit of anything here as of yet to even open discussion with them at the same time. We will, because it leads up to their border. I'm not confident that there will be much movement from their end of things to see any changes to what they've got for an existing road.
First conversation, because if you're going to have a crew out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is it Clarence? Who
I
had
get, yeah, I did have my hand. Thanks, Madam Reid. I had a question on what is a winter driving ticket?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Clarence? Cut out a little bit.
What is a winter driving ticket?
Well, winter driving can include
and how is that determined?
Well, it can include a number of things, but generally what officers are looking for is just people that are potentially driving, and I guess you could call it in a hazardous manner for what the current road conditions are. So again, it could be speeding. What else can I say behind it? I'm not really sure myself. I just know that they have been watching for people that are driving excessively or not slowing down for the conditions, not having vehicles clear for tail lights and things like that being marked for anybody that's following. Wintertime, you've also got less daylight hours, and something that I'm noticing a lot of right now are motorists that don't have their lights turned on. Most vehicles these days have the A for automatic on the light controls, but I stopped beside somebody today and requested them to roll down their window to turn their lights on because they had no tail lights, because the brightness of the headlights for daytime running lights is giving them enough light moving forward, but they're failing to recognize that the rest of their lights on their motor vehicle are not active. I encounter at least one of those every 2 days, just coming between my house and the office. It's actually quite rampant.
I was just wondering, because it's kind of a nebulous term. I thought,
yeah, it's also something that is on the Alberta traffic safety calendar. So that's from the provincial level of things being looked at. But generally, it's how motorists are conducting themselves in travel on the highways, not slowing down for icy, snow-covered road conditions and stuff like that, right?
Lionel and Tracy?
Getting back to 14.5, so that portion that the city put that milling down on, is that good enough just to lay pavement on top of, or did they have to redo the substructure?
Well, that's a good question. Addressing the question to me, my first inkling would probably be no. They would have to do a geotech study and have some strength tests and stuff done to determine what is suitable and what is not. Those chips were basically laid, blended with oil, and compacted. If you're looking for the longevity of a properly built road, my experience tells me it's a no.
Okay. Tracy, and then Hubie, did you have your hand up? Okay, Trace, then Hubie.
Just a quick comment when you're talking about lights and safety. The Volker Steven plow trucks, they need bigger flashing lights on them, because I come across one in the fog the other day, and I was going slow because it was foggy, but I come upon from it behind, and it was a good thing I was going slow, where I'd have never seen it. So they need to get some bigger flashing lights on them trucks.
Yeah, there are some standards behind how the trucks have to be lit. We've been informed, and I think I brought this up before when we were giving an award to a plow truck tender. There is discussion right now that a blue light flashing standard is likely to be put into place for plow trucks and other emergency service vehicles like that in the future. So you see the strobe lights on school buses already. Well, the blue flashing light would be the indicator of other industry work, like plow trucks and stuff. I don't know whether that's going to be a single light or if it's going to be multiple lights, but plow trucks are really bad because they got the boxes on the back, and generally the snow all gets built up on everything as well. We do encourage our drivers and stuff that when they take the brakes and pull over to check their vehicles, but as you know, it doesn't take long driving down a road before that snow buildup occurs again, and they're back to not being as well lit as possible, right? But we do try to encourage it. I don't know Volker's practices, but there are lighting standards on plow trucks and stuff for that effect. So.
Hubie and Ellen.
So when you're speaking about speeding or driving too fast in snow conditions or icy conditions, I guess that's left up to the discretion of the officer too, right?
That's correct.
Ellen.
Yes, Mark, just getting back to what you said earlier about people not turning on their taillights. It's been my experience the last few years, just, you know, when I come from my place and I go to a meeting now, it's a little easier because I just have to walk to the office here. But it's been so scary trying to turn on to the 550, you know, or turning on to the number 1. It's amazing how people not have either their taillights on or even their fog lights or anything. So I wonder, how could we have some sort of public education to tell people? It's just mind-boggling to me that I've actually decided now, if it's going to be really foggy, and usually it is, I don't know why Rosemary is always so foggy, it seems that way, that if I have to go to the office again for a meeting, I've promised some friends that say, Ellen, do not go in again when it's this foggy, because I've been coming to the office almost, you know what I mean? So I'm totally with you, Mark. It is so dangerous, especially during fog situations.
Yeah, I know that the RCMP locally have been doing a lot of education of motorists that they've come across for that. Interesting enough, and it's my personal experience, the vehicle, well, we own one brand of manufacturer in our household, and the place where I get that serviced is out of town. And their practice is when they take a vehicle into the shop, they turn the automatic headlights off, because when they drive in the shop, the high beams will kick on, and that's a hazard to the other technicians working in the shop. Now, you would think that they would turn them back on when they park them out in the lot for you to pick up. I can confirm that not all are being up to standard with that expectation. So before I take my vehicle and drop it off, I turn the headlights off myself, because that's my reminder to me when I get in my vehicle next time to turn them back on. And I confirmed that suspicion locally as well when I picked up a company truck not that long ago, that the headlights were turned off as well. So I politely identified that to the service center and said, you know, please ensure that when your techs are parking it back in the parking lot, either when the person comes in to get their keys, remind them to turn their lights on, or better yet, make sure that your techs are turning them back on. Because I have a suspicion that that's where a lot of these situations might be coming due. One elderly gentleman that I witnessed probably 5 mornings across a couple of weeks, I'm sure he had a brand new vehicle. And again, his forward-facing headlights were on, and he was convinced his lights were on. Well, one day I was driving to work, and an RCMP was parked in the Shoppers Drug Mart parking lot. So I decided to pull in, and I said, I'm a little bit early going to work today, but this gentleman I've seen at the same time on 4 different occasions coming through this intersection. That's why I'm sitting here, because somebody else has reported him too. And I said, well, don't ticket him. He's like, he's a well-aged gentleman. I wasn't confident that maybe he should be driving, but it's great to see that he still has his license and could be driving. And anyway, he drove right past us as the two of us were talking and no tail lights. And anyway, the cop pulled him over and educated him on it. But like I said, I did another one this morning. And it's all over in Brooks, and maybe it's just a little more common in the urban center because you have street lights and things like that, so your vision really isn't affected moving forward, and you just fail to recognize it backing up. But the one that I caught this morning was at the CCC building, pulled over to the side of the road. They turned on their signal light. Otherwise, I didn't even know that the vehicle was turned on. And they were going to pull out in front of me as I was going past. Anyway, I stopped and asked them to turn them on. But it's something that I can address through social media with enforcement. But I think that is something that if the RCMP detachments and officers are aware of those things, they should be doing that through safe communities and those sorts of avenues as well to bring awareness to the matter. And if they need to, maybe they should also be visiting some of the local service centers to remind them how important it is that when a person drops off their vehicle, they get it back in the same state for which they pick it up. But we all know the obligation is on the driver to ensure that their vehicle is operating as it should be on the road. So it's not that you can remove that obligation from the motorist.
Lionel?
What is well-aged?
Exceeding the age of all of you.
Diplomatic answer. Hey, you know, the whole light thing has happened in certainly my lifetime. And I remember the first time driving from Alberta back to Manitoba, and I moved here in the 80s. And it was a summertime, and there were these signs everywhere, lights on for life, I think they were. And we kept meeting vehicles with their lights on, you know, lights like on their headlights, and thought, geez, that's weird, it's daytime. So, you know, all of this stuff with lights is sort of new in the few decades. And also, there's lots of people who believe that because their headlights are on, their taillights are also on, and that isn't the case. And I don't think I'm that old, but that was pointed out to me not long ago. And you have to have the right year of car as well. So it's a learning event for everyone. Anyhow, thanks, Mark. Anything else?
That's everything from my side of things. Just looking for a motion, I guess, for my report and Cole's report.
Okay, Hubie, we'll move it. All in favor? This motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. No post-agenda items. Minibus report is there. It's nice to see that the minibus is able to continue to function, because that is very important. And no in camera, so I think this meeting has come to an end. And I see 3:38 on my iPad for time. Tracy, do you have a question?
I just wanted, did we vote, I might have missed it, did we vote to accept the planning and development report?
Yes.
We did,
Right.
okay, good.
Yeah, because it was a way back. Or no, it wasn't that far back. I don't know. I don't have initials by it. Ariana.
So go into that Foothills Little Bowl.
Well, like it's just online, isn't it?
I won't be there. I have a doctor's appointment in Calgary, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, you said you won't be going. Sorry.
Oh.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for telling us that. There'll be enough of us there, I would think. Anything else before? Okay. Officially over this meeting. It was a long one, but good one. Thanks, everyone.